Hello and welcome to our discussion about PE and its Leaving Cert PE. The first thing I would like to say is that everybody has to do senior cycle PE. So senior cycle PE is everybody in the country does two classes of senior cycle PE in first year, second year, third year, fourth year. In first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and fifth year and sixth year. This is Leaving Cert PE. It is separate to those. So the students who undertake Leaving Cert PE will have those two classes and they will undertake Leaving Cert PE. There are two major areas of study, and it is quite different to what they would have done in fourth year, third year, second year, and first year, and for people to be aware of that. So, the first one is towards peak performance, and you'll see that there's a wide range of things to cover. Now, all of these things have to be covered in fifth year of schooling, so it's very intense right from the very beginning. So, we will learn how skilled performance occurs, how you acquire skills. We'll analyze skill and technique. We'll analyze the biomechanics of it. We'll look at the physical demands of performance, be they agility, speed, quickness, strength, cardiovascular endurance, flexibility, muscular endurance, whatever is going on. We'll look at different principles of training. So things like rest, recovery, overload, um, being specific to your sport, how you can assess your sport, and how you can make sure that your principle of training suits the sport that you're doing. We'll look towards psychological preparation performance. We'll look at diet and nutrition. Again, focus towards sports. That different sports would have different loads. So a triathlete would have a different nutritional intake to a rugby player, and a rugby player would have a different nutritional intake to a gymnast. We'd look at safe practice in sport, and again, there would be some general things about warming up and cooling down and making sure the environment is safe. But again, safe practice in sport are large concepts that you would have to integrate with different sports. We'll look at the role of coaches and officials, and then we'll look towards planning for peak performance. And as I said at the beginning, all of these are covered in fifth year. So there's a lot of context to get through in fifth year. Then the second bit is contemporary issues in physical activity. And the first three, participation in physical activity, promoting physical activity, and barriers to participation, ethics and fair play, they are covered by everybody. And then of the last four, the students will be given two. They will be presented to them in fifth year as to which two of those four are going to be on their leaving cert. The contemporary issues in physical activity are not necessarily undertaken in fifth year or sixth year. PE follows what is called a non-linear pedagogy. That means if there is something about participation in physical activity associated with people with physical or intellectual disabilities, for example, the teacher is expected to bring that into the class at the time that it's happening. So if a Paralympic event, for example, which will be happening at the end of August this year, that would be something that we would be bringing into their fifth year class this year, whereas they wouldn't see it so much in sixth year. Um, the reason why we go through all that towards peak performance in fifth year, the assessment begins on the first day of September in sixth year and it continues for nearly all of the year. So PE is a really, really nice subject for a person who's a consistent worker. It is a terrible, terrible, terrible choice for a person who's going to leave everything to the last minute because you just will not succeed. And I'll go on and I'll explain that a little bit later. So the first task that they do is the first 10 weeks of sixth year. It's called a physical activity project. So people will pick one of any sport that is associated with the National Sports Council. There are over 100 different sports on it in Ireland, and they will analyse themselves playing that sport. They will set personal goals. They will plan to improve in those personal goals. They will implement that plan and they'll reflect on their journey. That takes 10 weeks to do. They have to test for a couple of weeks, then they have to analyse, then they have to plan, then they have to run a 5-week training block for themselves that they run themselves, not in class time, outside of class time. Then they test themselves again in class, and then they have to write a report about it. As I mentioned, it is for a person who really wants to work consistently, quite easily attainable. But as we have had previously, people who try to leave this to the last minute, it is impossible to do. It's impossible to run a 6-week training plan in 2 weeks. You have to kick off straight away in September. The second part is a 30%. It's a performance assessment. The class in fifth year will pick 3 different areas of performance that they want to achieve in. A person will pick one of those 3 things that they have in a specified sport, and they video themselves participating in that sport. This is a performance analysis assessment. It is based ultimately on performance. So if you're running 800 meters, if you run 800 meters in 2 minutes 40 seconds, it's not as good as the person who runs it in 2 minutes 30 seconds. It is really, really important that students realize this is very, very difficult physically, and that they have to be willing to push themselves physically in order to achieve good grades. We have a lot of people who feel this is, I'll just play soccer. It's like, no, it's like high level performance, really high level performance that we're looking for. And people are asked to participate in a variety of situations in their specified sport. So they will be different for their different sports. And then the last bit is a theory exam. This is short questions, case study, long questions. It's a long exam. It's quite difficult to finish. It's non-linear. I mentioned non-linear way of pedagogy. It's a non-linear exam. That means that in a specific question, there can be topics from different areas. So there can be topics from technology in sport and biomechanics in sport in the same question. And the idea is that people don't leave areas out of study before they come up to the exam. PE, what is it? It's theoretical and it's activity based. So all the theory that they will learn, they are expected to implement physically. So when we speak about the theory of overload in training, they're expected to overload themselves in training and know what that feels like, and know what that I've pushed myself to the very, very limit, and know what the difference between the frequency of my training and the intensity of my training and the type of my training and the time that I spend training. I find it's really, really interesting. It's very student centered. So 50% of this is project work. The students pick what they want to do for that 50%. But it is physically challenging. I shouldn't have said but there. It is physically challenging. That is really, really enjoyable for some people, and it should be enjoyable. I find it very enjoyable to challenge yourself physically and to kind of hurt slightly, as in that pushing yourself through a physical barrier. And it's really, really focused on learning about physical activity through physical activity. So there'll be very, very little that we will cover from a solely theoretical point of view. We're looking for us to do everything practically. But the main thing is for students to realize that PE is not sport. It is not playing basketball or soccer or badminton or volleyball. It is not playing games. It is not running around having a bit of fun. It is not what they did for junior Cert PE, and it is definitely not easy. It is very, very difficult in a very, very different way to a lot of other subjects. It's not sit down and study, but it is go, train, perform, become fitter, know how to become fitter, know how to become a better sportsman in your area, whether you're a swimmer or a gymnast or an athlete or a soccer player or a hurler or a Gaelic football, rugby player. It doesn't really matter what you are, that you are aware of, like, how do I plan to become a better athlete? What are the things that I do to make myself strong? Um, I think PE students should consider PE if they come to school all the time. Um, it is because I said we learn about physical activity through physical activity. If you don't have good attendance, there's no point picking up PE. You need to be a consistent worker so that you're working all the time. All of fifth year is learning theory because all of sixth year is assessment. A lot of it is self-motivating. I want, I have a task due in 10 weeks time. I've done a 6-week planning regime for myself. I have to go out and I have to run that plan myself. People who are active, that they don't need to be told to get up off their backside and go running, who like doing things, like learning stuff through doing, are interested in a variety of sports and activities. And that's really important because we have some people who might love rugby or love Gaelic football but have no interest in anything else. And PE really isn't suitable for someone like that. It's for somebody who's interested in how to become better at all those things, but has an interest in a wide variety of things. And it's very, very suitable for somebody who's interested in how to improve their performance. But I wouldn't ask anybody to consider it if you're the type of person who needs to be pushed out the door to do anything, who has to have supervision when they're doing work, who likes their own sport but nothing else, and who doesn't like training. You know, I like playing my soccer matches, but I don't like to go training. To get good grades in PE, you have to train quite hard.